Let's start with some of the good news from yesterday's SASSA and Postbank press conference. 1.5 million grant recipients have migrated from the old gold cards to the black cards. They say that SASSA has spent 200 million rand to migrate people from old cards to new cards. They say they're well within budget. They've also employed and hired 700 staff members to go door to door in order to process the migration, particularly in rural communities. Some of the bad news is that still more than 1.1 million people still don't have new black cards. And while they must have been very excited to come in under budget, still means that 1.1 million grant recipients still don't have access to a new black card when that deadline looms on the 20th of March. Hoodah Abrahams-Fayker is the Black Sash National Advocacy Manager. Good morning, Hoodah. Really appreciate your time. Another extension, but also an assurance from the Postbank and SASSA that migration will still be taking place after the 20th of March. But just simply the way that this has been handled over the last few months, it's systemic within the Department of Social Development and SASSA, is that we're always going very, very close to a precipice of people being left out on their own without having access to the social grants. Hoodah?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for inviting Black Sash. I mean, the challenge is always that the beneficiaries bear the brunt of whatever systemic issues DSD and SASSA have. And this is a case in point as well, because almost 46% of beneficiaries still need to have the card swap. And we're looking at the deadline being 2 days away. So while you introduced it as being good news, they had 6 months to do it. They started in September. And so in terms of being within budget, did they use the proper resources and infrastructure to make sure that this happens where beneficiaries don't have to run from pillar to post? The communication strategies for beneficiaries are not sure where to go. And it really is a challenge because you have 543 post offices and you have sites of about 329 for beneficiaries to go replace their cards, and you're looking at 1.1 million. And this must happen in 2 days. So it really is very frustrating that beneficiaries have to do the struggle while the Postbank and SASSA are not putting the needs of the beneficiaries first.
Where's this problem been? And I think communication has largely been an issue. Communication of how you firstly access information, communication about where are some of the retail stores you can go and renew or migrate your cards, or simply just a public information platform. We have constantly invited SASSA, the Postbank. So you could even have 15 free minutes. You wouldn't even have to buy airtime on a commercial radio station, but just come and answer people's questions and allay concerns about a looming deadline. And I must say there's been very little uptake on those invitations simply to come explain and give people information. Hoodah?
Yes, you're right. Communication is a key strategy, but also important is that you need to have and invest in resources to be able to make sure that beneficiaries can go to a site. So, for example, you have, first of all, a needs analysis of what the demographics are. Where are the most beneficiaries? Where do you need to have the sites? And, how much people do you have to assist these beneficiaries, especially given the rural-urban disparity. Beneficiaries in rural areas particularly struggle because even though you have access to retailers, in rural areas there are not so many retailers. And also when they do set up a site, there's not necessarily the people there to respond to the demand. You also have technical glitches, which is a challenge. And now the deadline is 2 days away. Beneficiaries are told that the SASSA Gold Card will no longer work, but they mustn't worry about the money. They will still be able to have access to those funds. But these are people that depend on this lifeline, but they can't access their monies unless they migrate to the post-blank black card. And that's a struggle because people may need transport, they need time. You also need to look at the fact that it's the most vulnerable. So there are beneficiaries that are bedridden, and although they've now indicated that they do home visits, you need to qualify and do an administrative process.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that eligibility criteria for home visits, which Black Sash has argued is too restrictive. It could leave individuals who are facing hardships out, who do not fit the listed criteria. What are some of those criteria?
Well, the main criteria is that you must show that you're incapacitated. So you need to get a letter from a medical practitioner or a clinic. And so can a beneficiary go there in a short time frame to be able to get that report or testament that they are incapacitated? And it's a matter of time pressure. And so given the fact that they have a issue with being able to move, then it is challenging.
So a elderly or an infirm person must go stand in a queue at an already crowded public health facility, get a certificate to say that they're unable to stand in a queue for a card to have eligibility for a home visit, and then only after standing in one queue do they get a form to say, I'm not fit enough to stand in another queue. It seems quite balmy at the moment.
Exactly. And also, you're mentioning the queues. At these sites, there are long queues because of the fact that there are a limited number of sites which cannot respond properly to the demand. And again, you're looking at vulnerable, you're looking at disabled, you're looking at elderly, and they don't necessarily have dignity service where there are chairs for these beneficiaries to be able to sit comfortably, and in terms of water and toilet facilities as well.
Hoodah Abrahams-Fayker, really appreciate your time. Black Sash National Advocacy Manager.